Dale Earnhardt Jr. just defended the one man who publicly humiliated him in front of the entire NASCAR media. No warning, no build-up, just Kyle Busch, sitting 27th in points, getting back up from the last man on earth anyone expected. And the reason Jr. stepped up tells you everything about what is actually happening inside that number 8 car right now. Let us start with what is happening right now, because if you haven't been following this week in NASCAR, you missed a lot. It started with Denny Hamlin. Hamlin went on his own podcast, Actions Detrimental, basically said Kyle Busch is not in a position where he should expect to be winning races right now. He wasn't being cruel, he was being honest. Kyle's equipment at Richard Childress Racing just isn't at the level it needs to be. The results back that up. But Kyle Busch didn't take it quietly. He fired back and told reporters he was going to make Denny Hamlin's life on the racetrack hell. Not a vague threat, not a soft comment. He put it out there, plain and direct, in front of cameras. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the moment Kyle said that, he handed every critic in NASCAR the perfect weapon to use against him. And the biggest voice to pick it up wasn't even someone who dislikes Kyle Busch. It was Dale Earnhardt Jr. Remember that quote from The Hook, "It's never Dale's fault, is it?" Keep that in mind, because what Jr. said next will make a lot more sense. On his podcast, the Dale Jr. Download, Earnhardt didn't pile on Kyle Busch. He didn't take shots. He did something much more surprising. He said he understood. Jr. told his audience that he and Kyle Busch have had their issues in the past. Not a secret. Anyone who followed NASCAR in the mid-2000s knows those two didn't exactly send each other birthday cards. There was real tension, real history. But Jr. sat down on his podcast and said, flat out, "I'll be honest, a long time ago there was a bit of a spat between me and him that was kind of ongoing." And then he said something even more telling. He said the media used to go back and forth between them every single week, trying to pull a soundbite out of one to use against the other. Week after week. It was a cycle. And at some point during that cycle, when Jr. was in a tough stretch with his crew chief Lance McGrew, Kyle Busch walked up to the media and delivered that line. "It's never Dale's fault, is it?" Now here's the part Jr. didn't have to say out loud, but everyone listening understood. The same thing Kyle said about Dale Earnhardt Jr. back then. The entire NASCAR world is saying it about Kyle Busch right now. Let's put this in real terms because the stats make the conversation hit harder. Kyle Busch is currently 27th in Cup Series points. Not 15th, not 20th, 27th. In a field of 36 full-time drivers, that puts him near the bottom third of the standings. His teammate at Richard Childress Racing is outperforming him. The car that Kyle is driving is not giving him what he needs, and nobody is pretending otherwise. Even Denny Hamlin, who lit this whole thing off, was not making up numbers. He was reading the same standings everyone else can see. So when Kyle pushed back and threatened to make Hamlin's race life difficult, the reaction wasn't just, wow, drama. The reaction was, Kyle, you're 27th in points. Is this really the move? And that is exactly the question Jr. was answering on his podcast. Not because he wanted to embarrass Busch, but because he lived it. Jr. said this situation is very similar to what he went through. And when someone who feuded with Kyle Busch for years turns around and says that tells you something real is happening here. When Dale Earnhardt Jr. was struggling with Lance McGrew as his crew chief, it wasn't a short, rough patch. It was a grinding, public, uncomfortable stretch where nothing was clicking. The car wasn't right. Results weren't coming. And every press conference, every media stop, reporters were looking for someone to blame. NASCAR fans have always loved Jr. So when things went wrong, the media protected him a little. Or at least that's how it looked to his competitors. Kyle Busch saw that and called it out. He basically told reporters that no matter what happened, Dale walked away clean while everyone around him took the hit. The crew chief got blamed. The car got blamed. The team got blamed. It's never Dale's fault, is it? That line stung, because there was just enough truth in it to make Jr. think twice. Now Kyle Busch is in that same spot. Bad car, struggling results, a teammate doing better. And everywhere he turns, someone is pointing a finger. Jr. didn't gloat. He connected. And that says more about where Jr. is mentally than almost anything else. But here's the thing Jr. revealed that almost nobody else had access to. The stuff happening on Kyle Busch's team radio. And it paints a picture nobody expected. Jr. said something on the Dale Jr. download that stopped people mid-listen. He told his audience that. When he's tuned into Kyle Busch's team radio, Kyle is actually the most professional voice on the channel. Let that sit for a second. The guy who just threatened to make Denny Hamlin's life hell. The guy who has been in the middle of NASCAR headlines all week. That guy is the calm one on the radio. Jr. explained that on Channel 2, which is where crew chiefs and spotters go to talk without the driver present, the conversations are unfiltered. No polish, no PR training, just raw frustration. And it's not Kyle driving that frustration, it's the people around him. The crew chief and the spotter are the ones saying things without a filter. They're the ones expressing every frustration out loud. And meanwhile, Busch is keeping it together in the cockpit. Jr. said, and this is almost word for word, that you would expect that kind of talk to come from the driver, but Kyle is actually the one who sounds the most professional out of the three. Remember, this is the same Kyle Busch who once publicly questioned whether Dale Earnhardt Jr. ever took responsibility for his own struggles. And now, Jr.'s the one defending Kyle's professionalism. Full Circle doesn't even cover it. Here's the honest truth about Kyle Busch's situation, and Jr. said it clearly without dressing it up. The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. Kyle Busch does not have a winning race car right now. Richard Childress Racing is not at the top of the equipment chain in NASCAR. That's a real, documented, measurable problem. You can't drive your way out of a car that won't go. But Kyle Busch is also not driving at the level he drove when he was winning championships at Joe Gibbs Racing. Whether that's age, comfort, confidence, or something else, the combination of driver and equipment is producing 27th place points results, and both sides of that equation carry some weight. Jr. was honest about this too. He didn't give Busch a complete pass, he just said the situation is complicated, and he said that from experience, not from the outside looking in. That matters. So what happens next? Because Kyle Busch threatening Denny Hamlin on the track doesn't go away just because Jr. empathizes with him. Those two still have to race each other every single weekend. The title of this video said Kyle Busch's own words came back to haunt him, and here's why that's exactly right. In 2026, Kyle Busch is sitting 27th in points, watching his teammate beat him, struggling with a car that isn't good enough, and dealing with the same media cycle he once used against Dale Earnhardt Jr. The media goes to him every week. They want a soundbite. They want him to say something he'll regret. And the question hanging over every press conference, every post-race interview, every podcast discussion is the same one he once aimed at Jr. It's never Kyle's fault, is it? He hasn't handled it perfectly. The Hamlin threat was not his finest moment. But according to Jr., inside that car, on that radio, Kyle Busch is showing something people didn't expect. He's handling it. Not great, not clean, but he's keeping the wheels on, and that counts for something when everything around you is falling apart. Think about what that actually takes. You are 27th in points. Your teammate is beating you. The crew chief and spotter on Channel 2 are venting every frustration out loud with zero filter. Reporters are waiting outside the hauler every single weekend looking for a crack. And the entire NASCAR world has already written the narrative about you. Most drivers break under half of that pressure. Kyle Busch is carrying all of it, climbing in that car every Sunday, and still sounding like the most composed voice on his own radio. That is not nothing. Dale Earnhardt Jr. lived the story. He knows how it ends. And the fact that he's the one defending Kyle Busch in 2026, after years of tension between them, might be the most unexpected twist this NASCAR season has produced. Jr. didn't have to say any of this publicly. He could have stayed quiet. He could have let the narrative run. Instead, he went on his own podcast, brought up a painful chapter from his own career, and used it to give Kyle Busch credit. That is a level of self-awareness that does not come easy. And coming from someone Busch once embarrassed in front of the media, it means something real. Because it turns out, it's never his fault. Hits a lot different when you're the one sitting in that car.